is the AFCFTA? Africa currently consists of 55 fragmented markets that are also amongst the fastest growing economies in the world. Yet trade within the continent is the lowest globally. Africa does more trade with those outside its continental borders than with its neighbours. But this is about to change. An agreement on the African Continental Free Trade Area was signed in March 2018 and is expected to increase the share of intra-African trade by up to 50% between 2020 and 2040, liberalise services and tackle other barriers to intra-African trade. So what are the tangible benefits? When fully operational, the AFCFTA will bring together 1.2 billion people with a combined gross domestic product of more than $3 trillion, representing the biggest trade deal since the formation of the WTO, covering not only trading goods, services, investment, intellectual property rights, and competition policy. The agreement is expected to benefit small and medium-sized businesses, which are responsible for more than 80% of Africa's employment and 50% of its GDP. ECA has been working with its partners to support and prepare countries for putting the agreement into practice. This means setting up platforms for dialogue and national regional events for discussion on the AFCFTA, supporting the African Union member states in developing national strategies to ensure countries can implement the AFCFTA considering the characteristics of their own markets, developing an AFCFTA Country Business Index, which will monitor and evaluate the implementation of the agreement for business. In addition to business, also mitigating the challenges, like ensuring the gender and youth-sensitive implementation of the AFCFTA, as well as mobilizing financial resources for implementation. The AFCFTA is an African solution for supporting industrial development, creating new business opportunities, generating jobs, and reducing poverty.
It is a good morning in Kampala, and I think wherever you are, it is also either good afternoon or a good night or a good day, whichever part of the world where you are. Welcome you again to this episode of the Pan-African Friday, where we look at issues that actually concern us as the people on the African continent. Today, we are looking at the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which was initiated by the African Union. It's one of the projects of the African Union. So, of course, it's not a new thing. It is only being emphasized now, looking at how Africa can do business within itself, the intra-Africa trade, which is apparently, as of now, very low. We are trading more with the rest of the world than we are trading within ourselves. In the studio today, I have the usual panelists with me. I have Sister Takali. Rachel. She normally laughs at me because that I pronounce her name badly, but also I have the Pan-African chapter chairman, Ndugu Daniel Rugarama today. So we'll be looking at the benefits, the challenges that Africa is facing when it comes to trading within itself, but also with the rest of the continent. I will begin with the members on the panel telling us what they have been through this week as usual. Then we start off with our subject. But like you have seen from that clip, we need to dissect and look at what this African Free Trade Area is and what it comes with in terms of economic empowerment of the African continent. Ndugu Rugarama, we'll begin with you over your week.
Thank you so much, Comrade Mtuta. Good morning, Sister Rachel, and good morning to you all viewers. Once again, I'm happy to be here to share my humble views with the viewers, and I'm particularly impressed, of course, with this topic, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Now, the week has been punctuated mainly for me of great importance and interest has been the PRE and I think the UCE. The incidences, like we used to have them, of cheating, I have not seen a lot of them.
Maybe it's more sophisticated.
Yeah, I think we must credit the ministry and the UNEP itself. I think they have tightened up, and also probably the people who used to participate in such malpractices have also gotten saved. Of course, we would love to have an examination conducted under very clear circumstances, whereby the products of that examination, of course, we still have problems with the nature of the examination, but I'm glad that there are plans underway to actually, which have been approved, to evaluate and start on progressive evaluation of the students. And to me, that is very, very, very important to overhaul and progressively upgrade our education system. So, PRE, UCE, cases of malpractices very much down. Of course, there are those that the directors, the head teachers, isolated cases who have run away with, they didn't actually register the pupils and the students, so they just vanished when time came. But the way it used to be about 4 or so years ago, it is not the case now. So I'm really glad that has happened. Globally, we are not so much away from what the happenings in Ukraine. Certainly the economy, global economy keeps shifting and getting drained because of the war. We have Uganda letting off successfully the satellite going into space. I don't know where it is now, the target, I don't know which planet it has been, but whatever.
It's just orbiting.
Yes, but the intentions, when I was listening to the Minister, Innovation, Science, Technology, you can see the intention is really very good, and I hope the purpose for which it has been launched is achieved. We keep it that way. Then finally, I'm glad that we are talking about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. We do not claim absolute expertise in this area, and like the practice is with the UBC family, is that we are here to shape and generate debate such that this conversation can keep on, because Africa Free Continental Area is something that all of us should be very proud of, since it fills the gap probably which was missed greatly in 1963 when the Organization of African Union was set up.
Rachel.
This week, just like he said, building on the very subject that he touched on, the fact that schools will actually be closing earlier than anticipated, I think is a direct result of the fact that infections have risen among children. And I think as we speak, the ministry tells us at least 8 have been lost to the battle against Ebola, which is a very vicious disease, as we know. But the fact that since September 20th, when it was declared, we will soon average about 1 a day. It's not a good figure, but it's given the kind of spread that it can register. I believe that the Ministry of Health has really put up a commendable resistance against this particular virus. So it underlines the capacity that we can actually find among our own selves to contain some of the issues that we face. if we put our heads together.
I know you have many other things to talk about that, but before I forget, particular interest has been drawn to the politics around Ebola. I was reading a statement, who authored it. They are calling it a leaked document, saying that by the end of March, 500 Ugandans will have died from. Ministry of Health is hiding a lot of information in Uganda. That just like, and that's the writing, what happened in Wuhan. And my thinking is someone trying to weaponize this so that Uganda is punished in one way or the other? Remember, just a week earlier, we were talking about the funding issues and the funding gaps. And we did agree and analyzed, and also were informed out of that information that some of the funding agencies had refused to give Uganda hard cash, opting to pass that money through the non-government organizations. But also that the fear was that that the officials in Uganda would be stealing this money if it were given as it were. Now, that didn't take long, because within the week we heard that some people had been arrested, but these ones had not even taken the money, but they had taken the portion. So now it comes to my understanding that I think someone is trying to create a propaganda weapon around Ebola for purposes of making Uganda look that bad. I don't know, for whatever reason. I'm not saying that the situation is not dangerous, but that the situation is not out of hand. Even the other time when we had Ebola the first time, we don't lose up to 500 people. So why would one think that Ugandans are going to lose about 500 people? I think that's not going to happen. But at the same time, it also reminds me of the same propaganda that was being peddled around the COVID-19 when it started, and someone in one of the capitals was saying that Africans were going to die like rats.
Well, I think it speaks well to the things that we discuss here routinely. It's always in someone's interest to keep front and center of whatever is going on the globe. There are people who don't want to agree to the fact that other people are also capable. In other words, those same people may actually be offended that some of these high-flying international organizations are not, have not set up camp and are totally in charge of the resistance to Ebola. So they may actually be offended that Minister of Health Uganda is actually capable of doing those sorts of things without having to run around the world seeking the so-called intellectual powers that be. But this thing is not new, because it reminds me of what is happening against Qatar, the World Cup. These same elements have been smearing the government of Qatar, relentlessly moreover. They've been talking about they've increased the carbon footprint. Can you imagine? That because of these high-tech exertions, such as unprecedented use of air conditioning to manage, the temperature within these facilities and so on. I know one case in France in particular, where they said Paris and some other capitals will not show this thing on their big screens because Qatar has contributed a lot. These ridiculous arguments.
I'm laughing because in Egypt, where they're having the COP conference, by yesterday when I was checking, the temperatures were 68. Now tell me, if you are not going to use the AC, how are you going to survive even at that COP thing with the temperature of 68?
Those same people have been saying many of the laborers in Qatar have lost their lives. The human rights is out of this world, as if they're perfect. They've been holding these events all these years. Are they perfect?
Anyway, back to your week.
No, I was still talking about the fact that the Minister of Health must be commended for putting up such a decent fight.
And for me, talking of which, I'm also thinking that the government of Uganda should look at this Ebola thing not as lightly as only the health issue. It should also be now a security issue, because if someone is doing that, there are also possibilities that there could be other plans of deliberately, maybe.
Weaponizing.
Exactly.
Well, there is a God somewhere. He always helps us. But aside from that, this situation, this developing story that is Ebola, there are also, for me, on the Pan-African front, I've been concerned by the move of Mr. Ruto lately. Mr. Ruto was here about a month ago.
The change of the constitution, I mean?
No, not that.
Okay. But he has not
Mr.
even
Ruto
said that either.
was trumpeting the cause of East Africa. And now he has this arrangement with South Africa. I don't know whether his East African partners were not interested. I don't know what it is. But as of today, by the 1st of January, Kenya will have this wonderful arrangement with South Africa, where the citizens of Kenya will no longer need a visa to go to South Africa.
I think Ugandans do need visas.
Well,
No?
we do.
We've got, we are there already. This issue of visas to
I think
South
Uganda is
Africa.
one. I think
Yes,
Uganda is one of those that visa. You can, if receive it on entry.
On arrival.
On arrival, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that
Well, the
is
Kenya
like Rachel
arrangement.
is saying. I think this is part of what we are actually discussing. She's right on that, in the sense that this issue of visas, travel restrictions, anything that hinders the man to move on the African continent from these artificial geographical countries that we talk about should be done away with. That's
True,
in the right
but I think
direction.
my issue is why don't we move together?
Exactly. Because again on that, you remember that while we were negotiating as East Africa for with the Europe and the rest, Kenya again shortcut the
I
rest.
jumped on with UK.
With
this
UK.
arrangement. So I'm thinking, why would you be here a month ago talking about, you know, East Africa and East Africa and East Africa? Then you jump, not that the people of Kenya don't deserve this. This is not what I'm saying. I'm saying the East African partner states, couldn't they use the same arrangement?
Yes.
Because if you're saying now the citizens of Kenya, beginning January 1, they will not, they can stay in South Africa for up to 90 days in one calendar year. You might do it 2 days at a time, but up to 90. Then Kenyan students who are in South Africa, if their visa should expire when they're there, they don't have to return home to renew it. It will be down in South Africa. There are a host of benefits that will come by this two-way arrangement. And I'm thinking, why? Why didn't you go as a unit? Don't the people of Uganda want this? I mean, that double speak is the reason why we labor so much to say that sort of thing, shortcuts, for example, the after thing that you're talking about. If we have actors who steal away in the night to do deals aside from the blocks they represent, it will delay us in the
But
end.
you can also read from the history back at their homes. We could also understand the types of the leaders. Because this
So
was
for me, that on the Pan-African scene was something I don't understand. These are the same people who did their thing with the UK. Is this a continuing story? Will you never move together? Is this the future of East Africa? And why? That is really what concerns me this week.
And I was telling you that the Earth Summit, commonly known, is also taking place in Egypt, and a lot of things are being discussed. But when you look at what is being discussed, of course, to do with the environment issues, to do with the safe world, the green energy, everything.
Climate justice.
Yes, a lot of things. But for me, I think it is an eye-opener that, look, we still have a number of issues to be tackled. Africa is being accused of tampering with the environment. We are cutting down trees. Of course, it is true, we are cutting them down. But maybe that's not the biggest problem. We have bigger problems from other parts of the world. he was talking about the emissions. Now people are saying because of the war in Ukraine and because of the disruption of supply of fuels and the rest, we now need to go black, getting back to coal. And when you sit down, like the president last time of Uganda was writing to say, if you are saying that Uganda, we are doing so much a disservice to the environment by putting up an oil pipeline, think of the effects that are going to be generated by the use of coal, which was used a long time ago, and it was abandoned because of those effects. And now you think you are going back to the better, or you are going back to the worse?
They're going back to convenience, as in they don't want to rely on Russia. So they are reviving. They said they had achieved an energy transition. These same people. And they said, look, people, now that for us we are moving into the transition, the people of Africa and Asia, please come join us. Now when they got the pressure, the energy pressure, now they're saying, no, we are putting our nuclear plants back online. No, we are revisiting coal. This hypocrisy is what the people of Africa are saying enough.
Double standard. You know, you see, maybe some information here. When you look at, again, when you look at the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, one of its objectives is to make sure that they introduce and sustain alternative renewable energy to power our African economy. And these temperatures, which we are claiming a menace, if the Secretariat in Accra has drawn up a plan where it is on the part of Africa where there is a lot of sun, you know, where they experience very hot temperatures, that we could tap the sun, you know, and then we do a lot of solar.
Yeah.
And it is projected that if that plan takes off, then in terms of power, the energy that we would have generated will be enough to considerably power the African economy in terms of industrialization.
Yes.
So yes, we are there. But probably also to say something about what my sister Rachel has just, what is disturbing her, and correctly so, anybody would get disturbed. You as a country, because when you look at the spirit of Africa Continental Free Trade Area, it is that we move as a continent. Now, when you look at these regional blocks, the economic regional blocks, they have in themselves, all of them, be it ECOWAS, be it Africa, I mean East African Community, be it, you know, COMESA, they will have in themselves the proviso that we are gearing up. All that we are doing is for purposes of making sure that we operate freely without encumbrances at continental level. So in other words, they are not in competition with the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. At the same time, when you look at the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, itself also recognizes the fact that all these African regional trade blocks, they are there for purposes of easing the realization of the objective of borderless Africa.
Sure. Yeah, so that has been in the week, and we have seen a lot of things also turn out, of course, across Africa. We have also seen the outside of Africa, the midterm elections in the US. And you have seen that much as the Republicans had thought they would capture most of the seats. I think luck has not been on their side. They have made a number of gains, but they are still suffering. And one of the biggest underdoings of the Republicans, I think, is the Trump himself.
Do they have a candidate?
Finally, they have to
The
have
Trump
one.
has finally been
The
knocked
Trump,
out.
Say Trump,
But it's a good thing he's been knocked out.
has been a problem. So I think the Republicans also are sensing danger, continuing to hang with Trump. I think they are sensing that danger, because if it were not that, maybe they would have performed better in this midterm. That has not been possible. But of course, Democrats also have a number of issues to sort out, to maintain
Their foreign policy is a disaster. I don't know about the domestic one, but so much. I think their foreign policy so far, they may of course show bravado that we are there when we are still holding the grips. We are there with our European brothers. But America must consider that her foreign policy, and especially in as far as the Ukraine war is concerned, is somebody is putting the rug under their feet, because when you look at the economic realignment now, and that the voices, for instance, from China, a voice from India, and some of these other economies. I understand Italy recently waived a number of conditions that they had put against trading with Russia.
Yeah, a number of things is
that
happening.
was done unilaterally. They didn't consult anybody. So there you go.
Someone was also posting, I think, on a laughable note, that the war has caused shortage almost in every sector, including now that the husbands, the number of men has dropped. Now, I've been telling you that you
What,
people
they're
are saying,
importing husbands also?
but either you have been conscripted in the war,
Oh,
or you
I
have,
thought European husbands
you have run away, or you are hiding somewhere. So only women are the ones at liberty. Now I'm saying maybe Rachel has something planned from here anyway. So viewer, we are looking at the trading in Africa. How does the African countries trade amongst themselves to raise that capital that they need? Of course, last time we were talking here, I said, can't we raise our own capital? That even when you are borrowing, you must borrow from the continent on Africa. He was talking about the solar countries that have the sun almost throughout. And Morocco has put up, it's one of the big 10 projects of Africa, the solar plant of Morocco, which is producing massively a lot of energy from that desert. So I think these are some of the things that we need. Now, if you are going to do that project, you realize you are either going to be funded by the EU, or you are going to be funded by some other country, or China will come and do that, and then they will later on demand money. I'm told some of the projects are being confiscated. So I think Africa has a lot to come out of, but the planning is the problem, like we have been saying. Why should someone undercut the rest and try to be smart by running alone? We can run it together. So today we're looking at this African Continental Free Trade Area. We're looking at the benefits of this instrument, but also the challenges that are being faced already. When implemented, the African Free Trade Area will have a population, a buying population of about 1 billion people. It will be one of the biggest a trading bloc on the world, with about a GDP of about 3 trillion or something.
But projections by 35 about 8 trillion.
Yes, and this is going to be massive for the continent of Africa. Do we see this happening in our lifetime? Shall we be able to realize this now, given, because one of the conditions of the free trade, African Free Trade Area, is to have 90% all the items tariffs waived, at least, so that goods can be transported across the borders of Africa, and also services. But it also said that within that a person of an African should be able to have residence wherever they want to be. Now, last time when we were checking, we realized that Ghana, for example, is saying because of the Nigerians, and I don't know what has happened to Nigerians all over, even in Egypt, they're chasing them. They're saying because of the Nigerians, when you want to buy property in Ghana, if you are not a Ghanaian, you have to buy it through a Ghanaian citizen. For simple reason is that most of the properties within the capital is being taken over by people who are not Ghanaians, and more so because of the Nigerian influence. So these are some of the things that needs to be addressed as we talk of the African Free Trade Area. But what is this free trade area we're talking about? I think I'll begin with Ndugu Rugarama.
Thank you so much, Comrade Mututa. Like I started off at the start of this show, I said and I repeat that I'm one of the members on the African continent that is very excited by the introduction, the wisdom that God gave our leaders and or the African leaders for that matter, that in March of 2018, the creation of Africa Continental Free Trade Area came into realization was a great gift from God. In my opinion, and I believe I share this opinion with a number of other progressive-minded people, is that what we have been missing as a continent is that effort on the part of the economic part to galvanize the African efforts in realization of economic independence. I want to believe that the contribution that was made by our forefathers, and if you like, foremothers also, in the creation of Organization of African Union that came into reality in 1963 in Addis Ababa, the efforts of the Kwame Nkrumah then and Mariam Julius Nyerere and other colleagues at that time was largely a political effort, and it was to wrap up and realign the political energies for purposes of also achieving other gains, like for instance in the economic aspect. That never happened that much, but what happened was that at least we got that political corrective effort that was all put together in the Organization of African Union now, and the current the African Union. Now, the African continent, when you look at the economics, when you look at the trade, when you look at the statistics from the World Bank, and other bodies, you know, the International Monetary Fund, and we look at how they compute our finally what we put on the market, our contribution. It is less. The entire Africa, you can imagine the 55 countries. It is our trade contribution is less than 3%. Now, what does that tell you? That we fall far behind what a single tiny country like Singapore contributes on the world market, which is roughly 6%. But potentially, with the creation of Africa Continental Free Trade Area, if we go by the blueprint, it means that we shall be, because the projection is that at least we should have finished the ratifications and all sorts of things that we need to do, domestications and what have you, within a period of 14 years.
Yeah, sure.
Now, we are estimated, we are projected to be well over China or India in terms of our contribution on the world market. So, this is an opportunity that we cannot miss. We are working against a background of the creation, the kind of economics, the kind of trade, the kind of economic arrangement is nothing but a creation of the colonial master. The purpose of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is to dismantle the colonial economic arrangement that the white man left here and realign the economics, they realign the trade in the sense that we do away with the tariffs. And this is not a simple thing, because we know that almost every country, by virtue of the arrangement, taxes, levies some tax from the goods entering into her country. Yeah, and when we bind ourselves as a continent to these small monies that come in as a way of charging the goods coming into our small, tiny countries, then we are going to miss the bigger picture. And I think this is what the General Secretary, Secretary General of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, a very fantastic man, I rate him highly,
Kamakele, yes.
has been talking about. And fortunately, the kind of brain power that has been assembled in Africa Continental Free Trade Area is also very, very good. At the same time, the choice of Ghana as the host of the Secretariat, if you asked me, for instance, I would have told if I was there then, because I can answer it now, that if there was any choice to be made as to who should host the headquarters of the Organization of African Union, I would have told you Ghana then. But it never happened, because Dr. Kwame Nkrumah Osejefo was so foresighted, and he saw that the emperor was going to run away from this arrangement. And in order to persuade him at that time, and also rally other forces, they agreed that it should be in Addis Ababa. I'm not taking away anything from Addis Ababa. They have done a fantastic job. They continue to do a fantastic job. Probably that was also foresight on their part. But I will tell you that Africa's missing gap, which is the economic fulcrum to power this continent, choosing Ghana as the host of the Secretariat has been a very wise decision, because now the opportunity probably which we say they missed in 1963 has been thrown back to them. We wait to see how they are going to use this opportunity to make sure that they influence the rest of the continent and power this country, this continent called Africa, to greater heights within the 14 years. And it is not lost on me that this kind of arrangement which Africa has commenced is not a simple arrangement. We are talking about, we have living examples of the European Union. 70 years now, but you can see that they are still grappling with very serious challenges. But all the same, when you compute and you say, okay, on the balance of things, the European Union, now the equivalent of Africa,
the African Union, Continental
Free Trade Area, the challenges you have, when you look at, for instance, Eastern Europe, which has been countries that have joined the European Union, you look at how they have benefited, their GDPs, their livelihood of the people, the cost of living, the happiness index, you can see that they are at a higher advantage by joining the European Union than if they stayed in their own individual countries.
Yeah, last time I saw some of them also escaping their countries, going to UK and other countries because they are now in that common market. Not that because they are doing very well back at home, but like you are saying, that unification, that collaboration within the European bloc has helped them to solidify their economics, but also get other opportunities in form of employment and investment, and that is very key, I think, for any population on this.
Very true, and I will also add this, Comrade Mtuta, that not saying it so loudly, but I can assure you that if Greece was not a member of the African Union, probably it would be one of the poorest countries, and at the same time it would have been ejected, maybe economically speaking, out of this shape of the map of Europe.
Yeah, we will be interrupted shortly, but we'll be back. I'm told UBC will be relaying World Cup from Qatar. So there is a function which is going on right now at the media center. They're launching, UBC is launching a campaign, and that published event that is going to be at the media center, and after that launch we'll be back here continuing with the program. It's not going to be a long time, the minister's already there, so let's go to media center to see what is happening, but we'll be back here to continue the program. Thank you, don't go away.
So thank you very much once again for turning up. We have invited you this morning to discuss or present to you something about the FIFA World Cup that's going to be held in Qatar. And we're here on behalf of government to announce that the public